And here you see, for example, well, you may know a number of the people there. On the far left is this was during the Portuguese EU presidency, is the Minister of Education of Portugal. The second one is Jorma Ollila, the chairman of Shell, and also the president of the ERT, President Barroso, Andrew Deering, who unfortunately died a few months ago from the research agency in Paris. And on the right is Leif Johansson, CEO of Volvo, who was then leading this work and who is now the new president of ERT. And so we concluded at that meeting with the Commission, we want to act as catalysts for education and business initiatives at the national and local level. We want to help create a European coordinating body, and I'll tell a little bit more about it in a minute, engage with OECD, and continue to take leadership on promoting STEM careers. Shortly thereafter, we actually issued this report. I brought some copies, but in the article that's in your handout, you find the hyperlink to it, so you can download it yourself. And you can see there both the overall European performance, which you can see here, compared also to Japan at the lower bottom and the USA. What you can see is Italy, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, i.e. the backbone of the European economy, are all doing pretty badly. The Netherlands and Belgium are not doing quite as bad, but well below. Only Finland, Poland, and Ireland are sort of up on the supply development indicator that we developed. And in the booklet yourself, you can see an analysis per country with the reason why. Now, what has happened since? The European Commission has published in February a strategy for a smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. It's got 5 headlines. Raise employment rate of the population aged 20 to 64 from the current 69% to 75%. Achieve the target of investing 3% of the GDP in R&D, in particular by improving the conditions of R&D investment by the private sector, and develop a new indicator to track those innovations. Then is the 2020 targets, which means reducing greenhouse gas emissions by at least 20% compared to 1990, or 30% that will get discussed in Cancun. Increase the share of renewable energy over the final energy consumption by 20%, and meet 20% increase in energy efficiency. Reduce the share of early school leavers to 10% from the current 15%, and increase the share of the population aged 30 to 34 having completed tertiary education from 31 to at least 40%. We have to become a talent powerhouse, an innovation powerhouse. And finally, reduce the number of Europeans living below the national poverty lines by 25%, lifting 20 million people out of poverty. They then developed 3 priority areas, which is basically a replication of the statement of the strategy, so smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. And below there, in black, you can see the 7 flagship programs. And so I think it is encouraging both for you and for me to see that the bold ones, innovation, so there's a report called the Innovation Union, education, youth on the move, and employment and skills, agenda for new skills and jobs. 3 out of the 7 flagship programs have to do with what you discussed today. The European Coordination Body seeks to address 2 things. One is the lack of interest in STEM skills and address the future skills gap. Because if we as industry want to stay in Europe and want to do the innovations we want to do, we'll need to have the talent. Now for Shell, that is less of an issue. Because if we can't get European graduates, we've got research labs outside Europe as well. Then we'll do the research there. For SMEs, small and medium-sized companies, that's a little bit more difficult. And also don't forget that who was early on in the funnel of innovations has a big impact on what happens in the world. Reality today, ladies and gentlemen, irrespective of what we say about China and India growing big, European environmental legislation is amongst the most copied legislations in the world. Thanks to the good activities of my fellow lobbyists for the automotive industry, China has adopted the Euro 4 standards. Won't say anything to you. What it means is the emission standards of cars in China are identical to the ones in Europe. So from a market of 500 million citizens, we now have added 1.5 billion. We now have a market of 2 million citizens, same standards for the cars. That's a significant advantage for the European car industry. Now, what does this European Coordination Body want to do to address the lack of interest in STEM and to close the future skills gap? We want to develop a repository of good practices, because there are good practices. They're just not known. Sometimes not even by the governments in the countries where they play, because they're sometimes private initiatives. We then want to disseminate and stimulate these best practices and indeed encourage new best practices from happening. And literally our future well-being will depend on it. Now, if I tell you the main deliverables, they are to act as an umbrella and coordination center that helps expand existing STEM initiatives and encourages quicker take-up in all European countries. Don't invent the wheel again. Coordinate, leverage and build upon existing school and business partnerships in the field of STEM education across Europe. Bring together and share the best practice of these initiatives. Identify common success factors for business education partnership schemes, because you've been talking in a very positive way of industry and schools working together. That was something that really struck me in the workshops that I attended today. But that is culturally typical for the United Kingdom. In France, for example, if you would suggest that company representatives would come into the classroom, ooh, c'est un peu trop, hein? That is really not done. In the Netherlands, it's not a problem either. In the Scandinavia, not either, but it's really culturally fixed. Now, I also was in a group this afternoon whereby somebody said, well, I went to school and was treated terribly. I will never go back to that school. So probably we need a small overhead group of just a couple of people, a handful, to lubricate that, to tell the schools how do you receive industry, and to tell industry how do you behave in schools. Because we should not take the place of the teacher, we should be there in support of the teacher. And there are a number of those projects that I know slightly better. And one that I know best is actually JetNet in the Netherlands. Again, you find that stands for Youth and Technology Network, the hyperlink in the handouts, which we were one of the founding fathers of, but now 31 companies, including non-Dutch companies participating, as well as 155 schools. The result is that the pupils of those schools, now 7% more, take STEM education at universities than those that do not participate. So it seems to begin to work. Now, the nice thing is, it's got three benefits. First of all, it serves the orientation of the children, because we don't say physics is important because of physics. No, we have an engineer going to the class and say, I build rockets, or I'll build dikes, or I do this. Oh, that's very interesting. Tell about it. He got samples and shows films or things like that. And then he says, you know why I can do that? I can do that because I need this, I need that. And then he makes the STEM skills relevant for something that boys and girls aspire to. Secondly, it helps the teacher, because we act as subservient to the teacher. So in the eyes of the children, the teacher suddenly becomes cool. Those of you that have children know cool is very important. If something is not cool, it's no good. So if this helps to make the teacher cool, that's a good thing. And you know what? Thirdly, as somebody told about a program of £400 a year or whatever per school account, remember who said that, it does indeed not cost money. And moreover, the people that actually participate in these programs come back highly motivated. Because actually it's great fun to talk with 13, 14-year-olds about what you're doing. They ask questions that you never thought could be asked about your job. Well, I skipped this one as well, but it's, there's a budget of about 9 million euros, of which the European Commission foots half. Then you've got the European Coordination Board members and a consortium of legal partners. Here you see from the bottom, Matena, Wissensfabrik, Platform, Science Technology, ERT, CEFIC is the European Chemical Industry Federation, and this is European Schoolnet. Those are like non-industrial partners, and all the rest are companies that have become partners in this scheme. So in conclusion, is it necessary to change? Well, there's one answer here that W. Edwards Deming, known for statistical quality control, gave to many CEOs of companies when they asked the question to him after he did some investigations in their premises, should I change? No, he said. It's not necessary to change. And the same applies to us. There's all the situation that I've just depicted. Is it necessary to change? No, it's not necessary to change. Why? Because survival is not mandatory. However, should you consider survival, and I certainly belong to that part of the group, then I think we should think about what I call the new ABC. And seriously, this is not joking. I think we need a new ABC, particularly for this 21st century in which we are in the big upswing of the exponential era. The A is for a better awareness about how technology interacts with society. We need behavioral change, which is more easily to get at when people do know and understand what's going on, and we need better choices. And this is in the handout, so this is the conclusion of the things that we need to do. But I congratulate you on having established today for the first time this Education and Employers Conference, Nick. And I commend you all, because what you do, and I hope that as a result of my presentation, you of course already knew that what you're doing is important, but that what you do is actually even more important than you thought it was because of the situation that is scheduled. Thank you very much for your attention.